Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and on this episode, we're going to be taking a look at a movie that answers a question absolutely nobody was asking in 1966. What if we take the Western and the Gothic horror film and smash them together like two freight trains full of mediocrity? The result is Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, a film so cheap, so slow, and so spectacularly confused about its own title that it makes you wonder if anyone involved had actually read the script, including the guy who wrote the script. This movie was directed by William Bodine, a man so old when he made this film that he literally started his career when the first Ford Model T car was basically still a new thing. By 1966, Bodine was in his 70s, and this was the man that Hollywood entrusted with the sacred duty of combining Jesse James and Frankenstein. And honestly, he delivered exactly the product you'd expect from a 73-year-old man who made the switch to B-movies back when FDR was in office. The film runs 83 minutes, and I want you to know that going in. 83 minutes. That's shorter than most Marvel third acts. And yet, somehow, watching this movie feels like doing a 12-hour shift at a factory where the only product is boredom. We open on the title card, and right away we've got problems. Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter. Remember that word, daughter. Tattoo it on your brain, because within the first 5 minutes of this movie, the main villain will explicitly say the word grandfather, making this title a lie before the opening act is even over. The music is doing that thing where it can't decide if it wants to be scary or adventurous, so it just kind of anxiously wanders between the two, like a guy at a party who doesn't know anyone. Trust me, I know that guy. It's usually me. Narda Onyx plays Frankenstein's granddaughter in this movie, and I need you to understand, this woman is about to carry this entire movie on her back like a pack mule hauling explosives up a mountain. She is the sole reason to watch this film. She acts like someone dared her to chew every piece of scenery on the set, and she took it personally. Also in this movie is Cal Boulder as Hank Tracy. Cal Boulder was a professional bodybuilder with a 52-inch chest. His acting range is, he had a 52-inch chest, let's just leave it at that. Anyways, thunder crashes in a southwestern village that's been almost entirely abandoned. The Lopez family, Manuel, his wife Nina, and their daughter Juanita, are apparently the last people who haven't fled. Everyone else took one look at the creepy mission on the hill and said, you know what, I hear Phoenix is nice this time of year.
Ever since those two came here, there's been nothing but death and sorrow.
Juanita is referring to the two European doctors who moved into the old mission. Manuel, for some reason, is defending them.
You speak in anger, Juanita. The children became ill. El Patron and his sister, both great doctors, could not save them.
They became ill only after they went to work in that awful place. And why were they buried at night? So we could not see them. To give them a Christian burial. Why?
Manuel, 3 children are dead. They were all buried at night so that nobody could see the bodies. The doctors moved into an abandoned hilltop mission and started asking for young people to come work for them. At what point does the pattern start to emerge, Manuel? How many dead kids does it take before you stop giving 5-star Yelp reviews to the murder doctors? Juanita went up to the mission demanding to know what happened to her brother Francisco, who has not been seen since. And apparently, Juanita is the only person in this village operating with a fully functional brain. Which is ironic given what this movie is about. Inside the mission, we have ourselves a laboratory. These are the original Kenneth Strickfaden electrical props from the 1931 Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. So this is actual movie history. Mel Brooks would also use this exact same equipment in Young Frankenstein in 1974. So this gear has been in a masterpiece. It's just that the masterpiece wasn't this. So now we have Dr. Maria Frankenstein standing over poor Francisco Lopez, who's strapped to a table with what I can only describe as the most ridiculous prop in the history of cinema on his head. It's a helmet that looks like a rainbow threw up on it with 2 antennas sticking out the top. Maria calls this thing a duothermic impulsator. I call it what happens when a craft store has a going out of business sale and nobody on set has any shame. This is supposed to be the 1880s, the American frontier, and we've got a helmet that looks like it was rejected from a 1960s children's television show for being too silly. If you wore this thing to a costume party, people would ask you to leave. Not because it's offensive, because it's an aesthetic war crime. Her brother, Rudolph, explains that they chose this location because a Professor von Metzler told them the American Southwest has the best electrical storms. So let me get this straight. The Frankensteins left Europe, crossed an ocean, and set up shop in the desert because a professor told them the lightning was better there. That's like moving to Antarctica because someone told you the ice was top notch. So Maria fires up the equipment and Francisco sits up briefly, then collapses and dies. But here's the twist. Rudolph secretly swapped out the digitalis for poison. He's been sabotaging Maria's experiments all along because he has a conscience. Unfortunately, he expresses this conscience not by, say, going to the police or refusing to participate, or literally anything useful, but by quietly poisoning test subjects that his sister has been experimenting on. Yeah, way to take a stand there, Rudolph. Really threading the needle between morality and accomplice to murder. Maria consults Grandpa Frankenstein's notebook and finally figures out what she's been missing this whole time.
It's because we've been forced to use the brains of children that we've failed. What we need is a man, a powerful man, a giant. Then we shall succeed.
She then pulls out the last artificial brain her grandfather ever made.
This is the last artificial brain Grandfather Frankenstein made.
And there it is. You all heard it. Maria said it, I quote, Grandfather Frankenstein. Grandfather. The movie is Frankenstein's daughter. She's his granddaughter. The title of this movie is wrong. It's been wrong for 60 years. It was wrong when it was released, and it's still wrong today. And I know some of you are probably sitting there going, yeah, but her parents are Frankenstein, so technically she is the daughter of a Frankenstein. And to that I say, yeah, okay, sure, but that's not how titles work, and you know it.
Imagine, we'll have someone to do our bidding who can't be put to death. Just as we have given it life, only we can take its life away.
So her plan is to build a super-powered zombie servant and use it to... what, exactly? I don't know. Her business plan is just like in that episode of South Park. Step 1, create unstoppable monster. Step 2. Step 3, profit. Okay, so now we cut to outside of a saloon where a crowd is watching a bare-knuckle boxing match between the enormous Hank Tracy and some unfortunate gentleman named Stacy. Jesse James watches nervously from the sidelines because they've bet everything they have on Hank winning.
You better win this, we're stone broke.
What makes you think I'm losing, Jesse?
And that's a fair point. I mean, Hank is roughly the size of a refrigerator, and Stacy is not. So this is not exactly what you would call a competitive matchup. Hank wins, obviously, because the movie would be very short if the guy who's going to be used to carry out the antagonist's master plan died in a bar fight in the first 15 minutes, but the saloon owner refuses to pay up and threatens to call the sheriff. Hank, displaying his incredible strategic thinking skills, announces to the room, "This man you're holding out on is Jesse James." Hank, you're a fugitive. You're on the run. Your friend's entire survival strategy depends on anonymity, and you just announced his real name like you're introducing a keynote speaker at a conference. The saloon owner is skeptical because he heard Jesse James was killed at Northridge. Jesse confirms his identity, collects the money, and they leave. The fight choreography, by the way, is incredibly stiff. Hank moves like someone is operating his body by remote control with a slight delay. Okay, so then we meet the Curry brothers, Butch and Lonnie. The Wild Bunch has been reduced to exactly 3 men. The 2 brothers and a lookout named Pete Ketchum. They lost 11 men across 3 recent jobs. 11. I mean, they may call themselves a gang, but they're clearly not very good at it. So Butch has invited Jesse James on a $100,000 stagecoach robbery without asking Lonnie first, and Lonnie is upset because he wanted a bigger share of the money. Butch's response to this reasonable business dispute is to punch his own brother in the face. Seriously, this is the worst management structure I've seen since my last HOA meeting. Lonnie visits Marshall McPhee and offers to betray Jesse for a $10,000 reward. The Marshal, who apparently has a sense of humor, tells Lonnie, "I never figured you'd try to shoot Jesse James from the front." That's actually a pretty solid burn for 1966. This is the most competent character in the movie, and he's only in about 4 scenes. Anyways, now it's time for the robbery. The gang moves in, but suddenly the Marshal and his men open fire from above. It's a counter ambush. The whole thing was a setup, courtesy of Lonnie's betrayal. Butch Curry, dead. Pete Ketchum, dead. The Wild Bunch is now just Jesse, Hank, and the guy who betrayed them. So, that's not a bunch, that's barely a pair. Hank takes a bullet that was aimed at Jesse, and just check out this acting.
Jesse, look out!
Anyways, they barely escape. The Marshal surveys the aftermath and says, well, that's the end of the Wild Bunch. And honestly, with their track record of losing, 11 men over the past 3 jobs, and now losing 2 more, the Wild Bunch is less of a criminal organization and more of a volunteer program for getting shot. Anyways, that night, Jesse and Hank, who's badly wounded, stumble upon the Lopez family's campsite. Manuel is frightened, but Jesse speaks some Spanish, which, apparently, is all it takes to build trust with the terrified family in the middle of nowhere at night.
He's been shot.
Well, he was cleaning his gun.
Jesse, you had all day to come up with a cover story. All day, riding across the desert with a bleeding man, and the excuse you come up with is that he was cleaning his gun? That's not a cover story. That's the verbal equivalent of a child hiding behind a curtain with their feet sticking out, going, "I'm not back here." Juanita doesn't even dignify it with a response. She just says the bullet must come out because she's a practical woman who doesn't have time for this nonsense. Despite her parents being terrified, and rightfully so, given their track record of young people going to the Hilltop Mission, Juanita insists on taking Hank to the Frankenstein doctors, because they're the only doctors around, and because the script needs her to. So on the way to the mission, Juanita gets attacked by some guy. Jesse hears her scream, fights the guy, and turns the man's own knife against him. Then Juanita throws herself into Jesse's arms and they kiss. They have known each other for roughly 15 minutes. They've exchanged maybe 6 sentences, 2 of which were about gunshot wounds. But that doesn't matter. This is love. True, deep, abiding love. The kind of love that can only blossom between an outlaw and a village girl over the body of a man Jesse just stabbed. It's truly the stuff of great romance. Also during this scene, we get our first exterior shot of the Frankenstein mission on the hill. And I have to say, this is one of the worst matte paintings I've ever seen. It looks like someone painted it on a napkin and held it up in front of the camera. It has like the 3-dimensional depth of a greeting card. Jesse pounds on the mission door and Rudolph is terrified. So Maria takes command because Maria always takes command. Maria would take command at someone else's dinner party. Maria would take command of a PTA meeting in a school district she doesn't even live in. Jesse trots out the gun cleaning story again, and Maria pretends to buy it, but she's barely listening because she's too busy mentally measuring Hank for a rainbow helmet, and Maria can barely contain herself.
He's strong as a giant. What a brute he'll make.
Imagine going to the hospital and finding out your doctor's interest in your body is whether it could be a good vessel for an artificial brain. That's basically what's happening here. Maria has the bedside manner of a butcher appraising livestock. Her logic is that nobody will come looking for wanted fugitives, which is actually a pretty good point. Maria may be deranged, but her strategic thinking is better than anyone else's in this movie. I mean, Jesse James couldn't come up with a cover story better than gun cleaning accident. Okay, so at one point, Juanita and Jesse share a nighttime conversation that is admittedly the best acted scene in the movie, which is kind of like saying it's the driest spot in the ocean, but still, this is actually a halfway decent scene. Juanita is the most well-drawn character in the film, which makes sense because she's the only one whose motivations make logical sense at every point in the story. She stays behind to watch over Hank because she doesn't trust the Frankensteins. She warns Jesse to leave, but Jesse doesn't listen because he is the protagonist of a bad movie, and ignoring good advice is his primary skill set. Maria watches this entire exchange from a doorway and she's pretty jealous. Of what, you might ask? Well, of Juanita having a conversation with a man Maria has known for approximately 2 days. Yes, Maria's possessiveness operates on the same timeline as a first grader who just called dibs on the good swing. So Maria approaches Jesse outside and goes for it.
Stay here. We need you. I need you.
Okay, let's pause on this. Maria is about to have a giant, obedient super soldier that will follow her every command. That's the point of the experiment. But instead of being excited about that, she's hitting on Jesse James, a wanted criminal with the charisma of a fence post and the intelligence of a man who thinks he was cleaning his gun is a viable alibi. Maria has access to unlimited power via experimental brain surgery, and she's out here trying to get a date.
I want you to share in everything. My experiments, my life.
How can I help you?
Rudolph is weak. I need you.
No, sorry. That's not going to work for me. I've just, I've got a lot going on right now, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I think you would be pretty clingy, and not like that typical excited in the beginning clingy, but scary clingy. Like wait outside the bathroom for me clingy. And I've just got enough anxiety in my life right now. With the whole fugitive thing. Of course, Jesse turns her down. I mean, he's a wanted criminal. He can't be fooling around with a crazy doctor. Maria then writes a note and gives it to Rudolph, claiming it's a prescription that Jesse needs to pick up from the pharmacist in Shelby. But the note actually identifies Jesse as the wanted outlaw. She's basically writing, "Dear pharmacist, please have this man arrested. Thanks. The lady with the brain in the jar." Let that sink in. This man, who has survived as a fugitive for years, is going to carry a note given to him by a woman he doesn't trust in a house where he knows bad things happen to a stranger in town without reading it. Jesse, what reason could you possibly have for not reading a note given to you by a woman who just got rejected and is clearly furious? Did your frontier education not cover the chapter on scorned women and their correspondence? This man was a famous outlaw. He robbed banks. He eluded capture for years, and he cannot identify a trap when it's handed to him in envelope form by a woman whose last words to him were dripping with the kind of rage that historically ends in someone getting poisoned at dinner. Okay, this is it. This is the big one. The scene the whole movie has been building toward. The scene that justifies this film's existence. Maria adds a white powder to a container with an artificial brain to activate it. I don't know what the white powder is. The movie doesn't say. It's just powder. Science powder. The kind of powder that means science is happening. Then the brain begins to pulse with a heartbeat, which I really don't understand. Brains do not beat. Nobody has ever put a stethoscope to someone's skull and said, "Good news, your brain has a good steady rhythm." The rainbow-painted helmet is placed on Hank's bald head, and then Maria puts on her own matching helmet because apparently the brain transfer process requires a wireless psychic link between the two helmets. Let me say that again. In the 1880s American Southwest, Maria Frankenstein has invented Bluetooth. Specifically Bluetooth for brains. The vintage lab equipment fires up, and I have to say, this is genuinely the coolest looking part of the movie. Like I said, this is the same equipment from the 1931 Frankenstein, and it looks legitimately great, even in this context. It's like finding a Rembrandt hanging in a gas station bathroom. The art is real, the setting is Deeply unfortunate. Maria begins her commands, and this is where Narda Onyx earns every cent she was paid.
You are no longer Hank Tracy. You are Igor. Do you understand me? Igor. That is how you will be known.
She's renaming him. She just performed experimental brain surgery, and her first order of business post-op is rebranding. This is the medical equivalent of buying a used car and immediately putting a vanity plate on it. Maria calls for Digitalis to revive Igor. Rudolph, running his same play from earlier, substitutes poison. But this time Maria catches him and tells Igor to kill him. And just like that, the man who was like 20 years too old to be Maria's brother becomes the first casualty of the Igor era. And I'm kind of conflicted over this because Rudolph was sabotaging all of the experiments, right? So that means that every dead child was technically his fault. Juanita, who has been sneaking around and watching like the world's most traumatized peeping Tom, sees the whole thing. Bald Hank, rainbow helmet, Igor strangling Rudolph. It's a lot to process, and Juanita processes it by running as fast as humanly possible in the opposite direction. Jesse arrives at Jensen's pharmacy in Shelby bright and early, apparently still not having read the note, so Jensen reads it and his eyes go wide. Look, I've been making fun of Jesse for not reading the note, and I stand by that, but let's just acknowledge that Jensen the pharmacist immediately runs out back to find a lawman. He doesn't even pretend to fill the prescription. He's just like, yeah, I don't have the medicine handy right now, so just sit there and I'll be right back with the medicine. And then he just bolts out of there like he's been electrocuted. Only Lonnie Curry, now working as a deputy after his Wild Bunch betrayal, is available. Lonnie sets up an ambush inside the store, but Jesse realizes something's wrong, and a shootout erupts. Jesse kills Lonnie because Jesse James is actually good at exactly one thing in this movie, and it's shooting people who are trying to shoot him first. Everything else, reading notes, making cover stories, recognizing traps, absolute disaster, but point a gun at him and suddenly he's competent. Jesse then reads the note after the gunfight, and he finds out Maria set him up. Jesse then encounters Juanita riding towards Shelby to warn him.
I came to warn you. You must not go back.
What do you mean? Is Hank all right?
No, what they did to Hank, you can't believe it. It's terrible. If you go back, they do the same thing to you.
What are you talking about?
Hank is not Hank anymore.
She's right. Hank is now Igor. He's bald. He's wearing a rainbow helmet, and his entire personality has been replaced with Obey Maria. Hank has gone from not the sharpest tool in the shed to not a tool at all, just a shed that follows orders. Jesse says he has to go back because, of course he does. He already failed to read a note, walked into a trap, and got ambushed in a pharmacy. Why not go back to the place where a mad scientist has a superpowered servant who just strangled a man? I mean, what could go wrong? Maria lets him in, lying that Rudolph forced her to write the note and that Hank left with Rudolph, but Jesse doesn't buy it. And he's like, I'll shake the truth out of you, and if that doesn't work, I'll choke it out of you. I'm serious, that's basically the dialogue.
Why do you treat me like this when you know how I feel about you?
Right, I'll shake the truth out of you.
Igor!
Right, then I'll choke it out of you.
Then Igor emerges and knocks Jesse unconscious. Maria has Igor carry Jesse to the lab and strap him to the operating table. Then she sends him away with the single greatest line in the film.
Igor! Go to your room. Your room, Igor.
Go to your room. She just told her artificially brained super soldier to go to his room. Like he's a child who broke a lamp. Like he stayed up past his bedtime. Igor, the unstoppable killing machine who just strangled a man to death. See, this is what happens when you build a monster, but your parenting instincts are stronger than your megalomania. Then Maria delivers her monologue, and if there were justice in this world, it would be in the Smithsonian.
Yes, I knew who you were from the very first. You see, we have something in common. We're both outside the law. That's why I offered you a chance to join me.
But you chose to refuse me. You, an outlaw, refusing me, Maria Frankenstein, granddaughter of a count.
She is furious. A criminal turned her down. Her ego cannot process it. In her mind, the social hierarchy goes counts, then granddaughters of counts, and then everyone else. Jesse James should be grateful that a woman of her lineage even offered him a position in her brain surgery empire. She's not mad he rejected her advances. She's mad he rejected her lineage. She's the world's most credentialed psychopath. So Juanita and Marshall McPhee arrive at the mission, and Maria tells them to go away. She's in the midst of an important experiment. And it's like, lady, you're always in the midst of an important experiment. That's your whole thing. So the marshal pushes in and finds Jesse strapped to the table, but before he can do anything, Maria calls Igor. Igor attacks the marshal and overpowers him after a gunshot goes off and drags him into another room. The marshal, by the way, went down fighting. I mean, he got a shot off, he tried. But Igor is an artificially brained bodybuilder who was literally designed to be unstoppable, so it's a bit of an unfair fight. This is where the movie reaches its climax, and simultaneously, the highest point of logical absurdity. Juanita sneaks in and finds Jesse, but then Maria spots her and gives the command to kill Juanita. Igor approaches Juanita, and this is it. The artificial brain is in control. Hank Tracy is gone. There is no reason for Igor to do anything other than follow the command. But he remembers her, the guy with the artificial brain, the brain that was explicitly stated to be the last one Grandpa Frankenstein ever made, the brain that replaced Hank's original brain, the brain that was activated via rainbow helmets and wireless psychic links, remembers the girl who was nice to him before the surgery? How? The movie spent like 20 minutes establishing that the artificial brain replaces the original brain. That's the whole point. That's why he's called Igor now. That's why he obeys Maria. The brain is new. It's an artificial brain. There are no old memories in there. Especially old memories from a different brain. But the script needed a way out. So Hank remembers Juanita. Because love conquers all, including basic internal story logic. So Igor turns on Maria instead and chokes her to death, and then turns on Jesse. But Juanita grabs a fallen gun and shoots Igor twice, and he's dead. So to summarize, the weakness of the artificial unstoppable man, as it turns out, is just getting shot. Just like a normal person. All that brain surgery and rainbow helmet technology, and the guy can get taken out by the same thing that takes everyone out in a Western. A gun. Maria literally said, just as we have given it life, only we can take its life away. And then someone who isn't Maria takes his life away with the standard issue revolver. So that was a lie. The marshal survives, by the way. He was just knocked out. For a lawman who got attacked by an unstoppable super soldier, he got off pretty easy. Igor showed more restraint with the marshal than he did with Rudolph, which suggests the artificial brain has a more nuanced ethical framework than anyone gave it credit for. The next morning, Jesse buries Hank beside the mission and marks his grave with Hank Tracy. He was Jesse James's friend. Wow. Then Jesse rides off into the sunset with the marshal. The man who was hunting him. They're just riding together now. Apparently the marshal is cool with it after everything. Isn't Jesse James a fugitive? He was involved in a stagecoach robbery attempt. But sure, let's just ride off into the sunset like old pals. Here's the thing about Jesse James meets Frankenstein's daughter. It's bad. It's obviously bad. William Bodine directed this at age 73, shot it in 8 days, along with another film I covered, Billy the Kid vs. Dracula, and never looked back. Nobody was waiting for Jesse James vs. Frankenstein's daughter, but 60 years later, we're still watching it, for some reason. At least I am. But I have a reason. I kind of had to because, I did the other movie, so it made sense that I cover this one too. I want to thank all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and my YouTube channel members. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. But that's pretty much it for this one, and I'll see you all next time.
I'm sorry I made a fool of myself.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to tell anyone. Well, except Hank. But, that's because we tell each other everything. We're best friends. In fact, I hope they put that on his tombstone when he dies. That we were friends. That he was my friend. That's not weird, right? Like, that's not egotistical to want to have my name on his tombstone.